The story of the 8th Air Force in World War II represents one of the most significant and costly air campaigns in military history. While their achievements have been celebrated in popular culture, the complete historical record reveals a more complex narrative of extraordinary sacrifice, tactical evolution, and strategic challenges. In this video, we'll examine the comprehensive record of the 8th Air Force through official military documents, survivor testimonies, and historical analysis. This examination reveals both the remarkable courage of the airmen who served and the enormous human cost of the strategic bombing campaign over Europe. The 8th Air Force's role in the European theater involved unprecedented logistical and operational challenges. Based in England, they conducted daylight precision bombing operations against German industrial and military targets from 1942 to 1945. According to official military records, the 8th Air Force suffered extraordinary casualties during these operations. Half of all U.S. Army Air Forces casualties in World War II, more than 47,000 casualties, with more than 26,000 killed in action, occurred within this single command. To provide historical context, the U.S. Marine Corps, which conducted some of the war's most intense ground combat across the Pacific, suffered 19,733 combat deaths during 4 years of fighting. The 8th Air Force's losses of 26,000 killed occurred within 3 years of European operations. Military historians note that these casualties occurred within a relatively small organization. The 8th Air Force never exceeded 200,000 personnel at any given time. Historical research determined that 2/3 of the men in the 8th Air Force could expect to die, or be wounded in combat, or be made prisoners of war. The story of the Memphis Belle provides insight into the operational realities facing 8th Air Force crews. This B-17 Flying Fortress became historically significant for completing 25 combat missions, which was the standard requirement for aircrew rotation home. The Memphis Belle completed its combat tour between November 7, 1942, and May 17, 1943, making them the first heavy bomber crew to complete a full operational tour. The aircraft and its crew were returned to the United States for war bond promotion tours. Military analysis reveals why this achievement was historically notable. Studies calculated that completing 25 bombing runs lowered those odds to less than 25%, meaning that statistically, only 1 in 4 crews could expect to complete a full combat tour without casualties. Individual bomb group experiences illustrate the broader challenges faced by 8th Air Force units. The 100th Bomb Group provides a well-documented example of the operational realities during the height of the bombing campaign. The 100th combat operations commenced on June 25, 1943. Their first mission resulted in a loss of 3 flying fortresses and 30 crewmen, providing an immediate introduction to the dangers of daylight bombing operations. Military historians noted that the 100th had been in the air for a matter of hours and had already lost 30 men. By October 1943, just 4 months after beginning operations, the unit had sustained significant personnel losses. Historical records document that the absence of 120 men will be noted. 1/4 of the 100th Group's airmen were gone during this initial period. The 100th Bomb Group's complete operational record shows they flew over 300 combat missions and suffered 177 aircraft missing in action, representing approximately 1,770 aircrew killed or captured over the course of their service. The mission of October 14, 1943, known historically as Black Thursday, represents a significant case study in the challenges of unescorted daylight bombing operations deep into German territory. On this date, 291 B-17 Flying Fortresses departed English air bases to attack ball-bearing manufacturing facilities at Schweinfurt, Germany. This target, located 400 miles from English bases, had been attacked previously in August 1943, with that mission costing 60 bombers but achieving a 40% reduction in bearing production. The October mission proceeded according to operational plans for approximately 200 miles, with P-47 Thunderbolt fighters providing escort protection. At the German border, these escort fighters reached their maximum operational range and were forced to return to base. A mission survivor described this critical transition. Signaling their departure, they wagged their wings at the B-17s in a friendly farewell, peeled off and returned home. As soon as the American fighters left, the Luftwaffe struck. German defensive tactics proved highly coordinated and effective. Historical accounts describe the attack methodology. Single-engine German fighters, 3 and 4 abreast, attacked head-on at American formation and fired 20mm cannons at close range. This first wave was quickly followed by a second consisting of heavy twin-engine Bf-110 fighters. The twin-engine German fighters employed particularly effective tactics. The larger fighters not only fired heavy-bore cannons, but also 21cm rockets launched from beneath their wings. Firing these projectiles from up to 1,000 yards away, the Bf-110 could safely remain outside the effective range of the bomber's defensive guns. These tactics successfully disrupted American defensive formations. Shooting rockets at the lead bomber, the Bf-110 forced the American formation to break up as individual B-17s conducted evasive action. Such tactics ruined the American formation's mutually supporting defensive fires. By the time the American formations reached their target area, they had already sustained a loss of 28 aircraft. Individual units experienced severe losses. The 40th Bomb Group, which had departed with 49 aircraft, lost 7 planes before reaching Schweinfurt. The return journey proved equally challenging. One participant described the continued German attacks. "Never had we seen so many Germans in the sky at one time, and never had their attacks seemed so well coordinated. Wherever one looked in the sky, there were Germans attacking, and B-17 smoking, burning, and spinning down." German defenders maintained a significant tactical advantage throughout the mission. Luftwaffe crews flying from their home bases had time to land, refuel, rearm, and sortie again. This process would continue as the bomber formation flew to and from the target area. The final assessment of the October 14th Schweinfurt mission revealed both the tactical costs and strategic limitations of deep penetration bombing without adequate fighter escort. Aircraft losses totaled 60 B-17s destroyed, with an additional 17 aircraft damaged beyond economical repair. Another 121 bombers sustained battle damage requiring extensive maintenance. The human casualties exceeded 600 aircrew killed, wounded, or missing in action, representing nearly 20% of the personnel committed to the mission. American aircrew reported destroying 186 German fighters during the engagement. However, German military records documented actual losses of 31 fighters destroyed, 12 aircraft written off due to combat damage, and 34 aircraft damaged but reparable, totaling 77 German aircraft lost or damaged. The strategic impact proved limited despite accurate bombing. While many bombs struck the target area, German ball bearing production decreased by only 10%. German industrial management quickly implemented countermeasures including production dispersal, alternative supplier development, and equipment redesign to reduce ball bearing requirements. Following this mission, 8th Air Force planners temporarily suspended deep penetration missions beyond fighter escort range while developing new tactical approaches. Military researchers conducted comprehensive studies of 8th Air Force casualty patterns throughout the war. These analyses, many classified for decades due to their sensitive nature, provided detailed insights into aircrew survival rates. Statistical analysis of 1943 operations indicated that American aircrews would not, statistically, survive the required 25 mission combat tours based on the loss rates experienced during that period. Individual unit records provide additional perspective on casualty rates. The 398th Bomb Group maintained detailed personnel records showing that of approximately 6,000 men who served with the unit throughout the war, 294 were killed in combat operations, representing approximately 1 in 20 aircrew members. This figure represents only combat fatalities and does not include wounded personnel or prisoners of war, which would significantly increase the total casualty percentage for combat units. By May 1945, when European operations concluded, the 8th Air Force had conducted more than 600,000 individual aircraft sorties and delivered over 670,000 tons of ordnance against enemy targets. The final personnel accounting revealed the full scope of casualties. A 26,000 aircrew killed in action. A 28,000 captured and held as prisoners of war. A thousands additional wounded in combat. A 4,700 aircraft lost in enemy action. These figures indicate that 54,000 personnel, equivalent to multiple infantry divisions, were either killed or captured during 8th Air Force operations. Military analysis determined that only 25% of heavy bomber crews completed their first tour of combat, meaning 3/4 of all crews sustained casualties before completing their initial 25 mission requirement. The strategic bombing campaign underwent significant evolution throughout the war period. Early 1943 operations faced multiple challenges, including limited fighter escort capability, crew inexperience, and well-organized German defenses. The introduction of long-range P-51 Mustang fighters in early 1944 fundamentally altered operational parameters. These aircraft could provide bomber escort throughout entire missions, dramatically reducing bomber loss rates while increasing pressure on German fighter units. Historical analysis suggests the bombing campaign's most significant strategic impact was the systematic attrition of German fighter pilots and aircraft through air-to-air combat rather than industrial target destruction. By June 1944, German air power had been substantially weakened through pilot losses rather than factory bombing. Post-war analysis by the Strategic Bombing Survey provided comprehensive evaluation of the campaign's effectiveness. This research determined that German war production increased throughout 1943 and reached peak levels in 1944 despite sustained bombing efforts. The Schweinfurt operations exemplify this pattern. While the August 1943 attack achieved temporary 40% reduction in ball bearing production, the October rate achieved only 10% reduction. German adaptation, including production dispersal, alternative suppliers, and equipment redesign, quickly restored production capacity. However, by late 1944 and 1945, sustained bombing operations combined with effective fighter escort had achieved significant cumulative effects on German production and transportation systems. Beyond statistical analysis, the human dimension of 8th Air Force operations emerges through individual accounts and personal testimonies. Most aircrew members were young Americans in their early 20s who had volunteered for combat aviation service. John Lucky Luckadoo, a 100th Bomb Group veteran who survived the unit's heavy losses, later reflected, "What we did has become legendary. My comrades are the heroes." Another veteran described the psychological reality facing these young airmen. Their chance of survival was less than 50%. "We're blessed that our youth, those who do the fighting and the bleeding and the crying and the dying, are impervious, or so they believe, to danger, invulnerable to risk, positive about their chances." These observations highlight the remarkable determination required to continue combat operations while understanding the mathematical probabilities against survival. The high casualty rates experienced in 1943 led to significant modifications in 8th Air Force operations. These included development of long-range fighter escort capabilities, improved formation tactics, enhanced crew training programs, and upgraded aircraft defensive armament. These adaptations contributed substantially to improved survival rates in 1944 and 1945. The operational experience also influenced post-war military aviation doctrine, particularly emphasizing air superiority operations and the limitations of unescorted strategic bombing against determined opposition. The 8th Air Force made crucial contributions to Allied victory in Europe, helping establish air superiority over Western Europe, supporting the Normandy invasion, and contributing to Germany's eventual defeat. These achievements came at extraordinary human cost. The 26,000 killed and 28,000 captured represent the highest casualty rates of any American military organization during World War II. These losses occurred among volunteers who understood their mission's dangers and continued serving despite statistical odds that made survival improbable. The strategic bombing campaign's overall effectiveness remains a subject of ongoing historical analysis. While early operations faced significant challenges and achieved limited immediate results, the cumulative impact by 1945 had severely impacted German war production and transportation capabilities. The 8th Air Force story represents both remarkable individual courage and the enormous costs of strategic warfare. These young Americans, most barely beyond their teenage years, volunteered for assignments that military statistics showed to be among World War II's most hazardous duties. Their sacrifice contributed significantly to Allied victory in Europe, though at costs that exceeded military planning expectations. The statistical reality that only 25% of crews completed combat tours without casualties demonstrates the extraordinary courage required to maintain these operations. Historical analysis shows the 8th Air Force evolved from early tactical setbacks to achieve significant strategic impact. However, this evolution occurred at the cost of an entire generation of American airmen who made the ultimate sacrifice for Allied victory. Their complete story encompasses both strategic achievements and human costs. The tactical successes, and the mathematical realities faced by young Americans who served despite overwhelming odds. This comprehensive historical record honors both their contributions and their sacrifice and service to their nation.